So, welcome to the third lecture of the chapter Evolution. So, this will be the last lecture on this chapter. In the previous class, we discussed about what all evidences are there that proves that evolution is a real event. Okay, so people have looked into fossils. Then, under this evidences, we looked into what is convergent and divergent evolution, right? From by studying the anatomical structures and what functions they play, people have said that there are two types of evolution that has happened. One is convergent and one is divergent. Then, in a given geographical area, people have seen that from a particular starting point, species literally radiate into different directions of different directions, means they acquire different unique properties and live in different types of habitats in that particular geographical area. So that is called the adaptive radiation. So famous example is Darwin's finches, and how according to their food habits, their beak shape has evolved. Then under Darwinian theory of evolution, we looked into more detail. What do you mean by natural selection? Now in today's class, we will start with our discussion by understanding Lamarck's theory of evolution. So according to Lamarck, he said that evolution of life forms had occurred. Yes, it has occurred, but this evolution is driven by use and disuse of organs. Okay, so what this means, certain organs in a particular individual, if it favors means, the survival of that organism in that habitat, then that organ will be used more and more, right? Whereas another organ in the same individual, if it is not used in its lifetime, so it will not get passed on to the next generation. So useful organs get passed on to the next generation, where the which are not useful, which doesn't get passed on. So this was, and that is how after a few generations, a new species have evolved, according to Lamarck. So, or a new character has evolved into that particular individual that is now, present in all the individuals of that species. So, Lamarck's theory of evolution can be explained through the example of giraffes. So, in giraffes, they eat leaves. They are vegetarians, right? So, in order to eat leaves on tall trees, they adapted by elongating their necks. Okay, so over the generations, this acquired character of elongated neck, it was then passed on, and that is why today all the giraffes have long necks only. So that so the use of the neck, how the neck was used, right? Uh, Giraffes elongated it in order to feed on leaves that were present at greater height. So because of that, this character of elongated neck, they got passed on over generations. And so that is why today all the giraffes have long necks. So this example explains what Lamarck tried to say in his theory of evolution. There is another scientist named Hugo Drives. So he was working on a plant called evening primrose. And based on his work, he proposed the idea of mutation. So at that time, concept of mutation was brought forth by this person, but he was not aware of, you know, the molecular basis of inheritance, means the DNA, RNA level, right, and how mutation evolved there. So so his definition of mutation is not the same that we discussed in the previous chapter. So he said that it is the mutation that brings large differences suddenly, okay, suddenly in a given population. Large differences in this, say, like large difference in food habits or phenotypical characteristics. So it is a mutation that brings this sudden large differences. He also said it is the mutation that causes evolution, not the variations, which Darwin said. Okay, and mutation, according to him, is random, means it can happen at any point of time or to any individual actually within the population. And a mutation is directionless, means one type of mutation doesn't guarantee the occurrence of another type of mutation. Whereas variations, according to Darwin, they are small, means whatever effect the variations have on a particular individual or in a population is small, so relatively small. And also variations are directional, means the effect of one type of variation can lead to another type of variation, something like that. Lastly, when mutation results in evolution of a completely new species with distinct characteristics, then it will be called, then this event is called saltation event. Okay, and the evolution of a new species is called speciation. Saltation is also called single step large mutation, because in one step a new species has evolved. So this was all about mutation theory. Now we will move our discussion to population genetics. So population genetics is actually a sub area of the large field of genetics, where people, rather than studying individuals or the genetic composition of an individual, they study genetic composition of all the individuals in a population. Okay, and try to understand various kind of genetic features in terms of how much it affects a particular population. Okay, how many people actually show a particular genetic characteristics. These kind of questions are answered when people look into the field of, or people when use the tools of population genetics. So under this area, a famous principle is there that is called Hardy-Weinberg principle. So what this principle states? This principle states that allele frequencies. Okay, what is allele frequencies? I'll come to it later. So allele frequencies in a population, they are stable in nature, all right, and is constant from one generation to the next. So in general, in a given population, the allele frequencies is stable and constant. It means the value doesn't change. Also, the allele frequency remains in equilibrium. And allele frequencies also do not change when studying population of one generation to the next generation. This is what Hardy-Weinberg principle states. So what do you mean by allele frequency? So let's take an example to understand this. Consider a gene for the blood group in humans, okay? So there are three alleles that results in three types of phenotypes, correct? Or antigen expression that you have already studied in previous chapters of this unit. So three alleles are IA, IB, and I. Now in a given population, say there are 100 individuals. Okay, this is just a hypothetical number. Now within this 100 individual, we want to study how many of them have the allele small I. So in order to calculate that, what people do, people calculate the frequency of this particular allele or occurrence. How many individuals have the allele I. This is what this term frequency of allele I means. Okay, it means how many individuals in a population have the allele I. So it can be calculated using this particular formula. So in the numerator, you will first have to count how many individuals have allele I. So you do genetic sequencing and all, and find that there are 10 individuals who have allele I. Okay, and out of 100 people. So the frequency will come out to be 10% or zero point 0.1 or 1 by 10. So this is how you calculate allele frequency. So what I have written basically, I have written in the numerator the number of copies of allele I in the population, means how many people have allele I. Then divide by total number of all alleles of gene in the population. Basically translates to total number of individuals having this gene, okay, with different kind of alleles, IA, IB, and IB. So I'm assuming all the 100 people have this gene, okay. So the number will be then 100. This is how you calculate allele frequency. So now the principle, Hardy-Weinberg principle, becomes clear, right? So in a given population, the allele frequency is for all the alleles, okay, for all the alleles, for all types of genes, is stable and is constant from one generation to the next generation. It doesn't change generation wise. Now, what is another term important for understanding, important for you to understand, is called gene pool. What do you mean by gene pool? Gene pool actually consists of, or it refers to all the alleles of all the genes. So in humans, like you have studied in human genome projects, there are around 30,000 genes. Okay. Now all these genes have alleles, okay, or may not have alleles. So if say there are 40,000 alleles, so it will become, if this number is not exact by the 40,000 alleles, this is just an hypothetical number. But what I'm trying to say, then the gene pool of human population will consist of 40,000 alleles. So that is the definition of gene pool. Now, another term important for you to understand is genetic equilibrium, also referred to as Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So what this means is when gene pool remains constant or it does not change from one generation to the next generation, then the population is said to be in genetic equilibrium or Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So in under genetic equilibrium state, the sum total of all allelic frequencies is basically 1. Okay? When you add up the allele frequencies of all the alleles for all the genes, then you will get 1, value 1. Now this is only possible when the population is in genetic equilibrium. So one can actually write the Hardy-Weinberg principle in terms of an algebraic expression. How? Let's find out. Now for any gene, okay, that is there in a given population, there are two types of alleles, same. Okay, allele A and allele small a. So in a given population, say the frequency of allele capital A is given by small p, and the frequency of allele small a is given by Q. Okay, this P and Q are some numerical values, but here, for sake of explanation, it is written as P and Q. So an individual, say a human, is undiploid, right? So what combinations of alleles can be present in the particular gene locus? So an individual can either have A, right? Small a, and capital A, small a. Recall how I am deriving this from our discussion of Mendel's, Punnett square, right? Mendel's principles of inheritance. You have read about this, okay? So these three types of combinations of alleles can exist in a given population. So now we can calculate the frequency of occurrence of, say, combination capital A, capital A. So in that case, it will become P square, means P into P square. And similarly, the frequency of occurrence of small a will become Q square, that is Q into Q, and frequency of occurrence of heterozygous condition, that is capital A, small a, becomes 2PQ. So if the given population is in genetic equilibrium or in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, then the sum of the statement, then the sum of all allelic frequencies is 1. So here, these are the allelic frequencies that you have obtained. So when you add up, it will equal to value 1. So when you look at this expression closely, it is nothing but A plus B whole square, right? So it can be written as like this as well. P plus Q whole square is equals to 1. Now, when do you say that a given population is not in genetic equilibrium? When it is possible? We will discuss that now. So when measured allelic frequencies is different from the expected values, then the genetic equilibrium is disturbed. So suppose 10 generation back, people have calculated the allelic frequencies of in a given population. All right. So this was their, initial value. So after 10 generations, again they measured the allelic frequencies. Now the value came to be different. It is not stable. Means the value that they obtained is not same as the one that they obtained 10 years back. So because of this difference in the result or difference in the values of the of the measured allelic frequencies, they concluded that the population is not in genetic equilibrium anymore. Equilibrium has been disturbed. Okay. So when this disturbance occurs, then people interpret this as, evolutionary process is in place. When some kind of evolutionary change is going to happen, or or in its initial stages, or it has progressed a lot. So basically, this is an indication of evolution when genetic equilibrium has been disturbed in a given population. So what are the factors that actually resulted in disturbance of genetic equilibrium, or that can, cause disturbance in genetic equilibrium? So these are the 5 important factors. First is called gene migration or gene flow. Second is genetic drift. Third, mutation. Fourth, genetic recombination. And fifth, natural selection. These are the 5 factors. And all these 5 factors result in change in the allele frequency. Since allele frequency is changed, so genetic equilibrium will be disturbed, and the Hardy-Weinberg principle in that case won't be applicable, right? So let's understand in detail about the all 5 factors. So among these 5 factors, you already know about natural selection, as well as you know about genetic recombination, which happens during the formation of gametes during meiosis process, right? So these two will be not discussed too much in detail. Also, you are familiar with the concept of mutation, right? That is change in the base pairs, the DNA sequence that you are aware of. But we'll talk about this in terms of evolution, and we will look in more detail about these 2 factors. What is gene migration or gene flow, and genetic drift? What is gene migration? So gene migration actually refers to the movement of individuals, okay, one or more individuals. They move from one place to the another place So they belong to one population. Initially they belong to one population, and then because of something, they decided to move to another population. Okay. So when they are moving, they're also carrying the genetic materials. So in the original population, some alleles are lost because of this movement, whereas in the new population where they have moved, their new alleles have been added. So that is the consequence of genetic migration. So as you can see from this particular image, this is a population of beetles, brown colored beetles. So one beetle decided to move to a population where all the beetles are green in color. So this will lead to introduction of a beetle which will be brown in color. This event is called genetic migration. Now, another example could be how people move from one state to another because of job or for education. This is also a kind of genetic migration. Now, if this happens more than once, like repeatedly, this happens, okay, from one population to another population, people are moving, okay, they are settling down, okay, to a new location where a new population exists. So then in that case, it will be simply called a flow is there, means genetic flow is there. You can see a clear, uh, means you can trace actually, you can actually trace the flow of gene from one population to another population. But if it is one time, it has only happened one time, then it is, you know, yeah, it is a bit difficult. It is not that easy to conclude that it is a gene flow. So when one time flow can happen, or you know, it can happen, uh, suddenly or randomly. So when that happens, it is called genetic drift. Okay. So when few individuals in a population move to another population due to a random event, say due to war, you know very well about wars. Like there are refugees who have lost their homes, or they cannot live in that place anymore. So they move to new countries. So this thing is randomly. Nobody predicted 10 years back that there are going to be a war, or even a 1 year back. It happened suddenly. Similarly, due to any environmental disaster like tsunami or drought, etc. So that also causes, migration of people from one place to another, just settle down and become part of the new population. So because of these reasons, we also see movement of people and introduction of new alleles in the new population. So because of which there is a change in frequency of alleles. So this kind of event that happens randomly or suddenly is called genetic drift. An extreme example of genetic drift is actually founder's effect. Okay, so you can understand founder's effect by considering an example. Suppose there is a group of people, okay, who are living in a very big area. Now, few of them decided that, due to any reason, decided that they don't want to live with those people anymore. So they left their home and moved to a new geographical area. Now, in that geographical area, say an island, no other human existed or no other person existed. And now, in that island, these people have settled down. So whatever, so when they reproduce and have children and increase their population, in that population, whatever genetic material is there, okay, the gene pool of that population, it will be determined by the genetic material of the founders who originally came and settled down in that island. Correct? So when this kind of event happens, it will be called founders effect. Okay. So I can again explain it using the definition that is written here. Founders effect occurs when a small group of individuals, they break off from a larger population to establish a colony. Okay, so and this colony is a new colony, means it could be in an island or a new geographical area where they are the first one to arrive. Okay, now this colony is completely isolated from the original population. It is not like only 10 kilometers away. It might be very, very far away. And because of which the people who migrated or the founders will not be able to come back to the original population. So they are completely isolated from the original population. And the founding individuals in this case will not, now the founding individuals will in this case not represent the entire genetic diversity of the original population. What this statement means, these individuals who are the founders, they will carry only one or two type of alleles with them, okay, of different kind of genes. But in that particular population, for a gene, say there are 10 types of alleles. So the genetic diversity that existed in the original population, is not represented by these few individuals. Okay, and the new population, which will be now established by these founding individuals, their genetic diversity will be decided by these founding members only. Okay, and it might be completely different from the original individuals or the original population. So this is founders effect. Now mutation, uh, like it can lead to new type of phenotypes. Okay, now these new phenotypes can either help in survival or it can affect the survival. Say mutation causes certain kind of genetic disorder, so then it is affecting survival. But if a mutation is helping in survival, then it gets passed on to the next generation. Now, when more and more individuals have this particular mutation, and it can then lead to speciation, or according to Hugo Davis, this event will be called saltation. And lastly, you know already about natural selection. So what is natural selection? It is a process in which heritable variations enable better survival of few individuals so that they reproduce and leave behind more progeny. These needs no further explanation, because in the previous class we already discussed in very detail what is natural selection. Now, natural selection may lead to one of these three events. Okay, so it can either lead to stabilization, means in a given population, more and more individuals acquire the mean character. Let's take the example of giraffe. Okay, so the population of giraffe, there are few who are having necks longer than the average. Okay, so the natural selection is of stabilization type. Then after a few generations, you will see more and more individuals will have the long neck only. Okay, that is here the mean character is the long neck. Then directional. Okay, the directional type of natural selection, here what happens, more and more individuals in a population, they acquire character which is not the mean character value. So if in a given population, all of the individuals have a food habit of eating fruits, okay, but due to particular natural event, uh, fruits or plants are scarce in nature. So initially, or in a given population, the food habit didn't remain the same, right? It didn't remain the same. It will now move to another kind of food habit. So more and more individual will acquire a food habit other than eating fruits. So this will be directional type. And then disruption. So here in this kind of natural selection, here more and more individuals, they acquire, you know, peripheral character values. So what do you mean peripheral character values? Means few individuals say acquire short height, few individuals acquire tall height. So these are two extremes at the two ends of the graph. The mean value is not relevant anymore in this case, in the given population. So you can understand this using this particular graph. So let's say initially in one generation, this is the bell-shaped curve that represented how means how many individuals were there with a particular type of phenotype. So the uh, you can see this line. This line represents that maximum number of individuals, they possess the some character, and you can call that character as a mean character value. Now, due to a natural selection event, which is of stabilization type. Okay, so here the environmental condition is such that it favors the inheritance of the mean character value only, because of which the peak, it has become narrower, okay, and it has become taller, meaning more and more individuals acquired only the mean character value, means this character drawn by a line. Now, if the mutational event is such that it shifts to another direction, means the mean character value was here, but more and more individuals, rather than acquiring the mean character value, they acquired a new character. Okay, so there's a shift in one direction only. Now, most of the individuals have the new character, which is this, and there is some distance in between. It has moved towards the right side. This is called directional type of natural selection event. Now, in another event, what can happen is more and more individuals, they acquire characters which are at the peripheries of the distribution curve. This is the distribution curve. They are acquiring either type of the peripheral characters. So if this is the mean character value, none of the individuals have the mean character value anymore. Few have, say, A type of peripheral character, another group of individuals, they have B type of peripheral character. And both of these peripheral characters, they are selected by nature. So it supports the survival of these individuals, and they can leave behind more and more progenies with either type of peripheral characters. This is how the natural selection can, manifest itself in a given population. Now, we have completed our discussion on few topics of population genetics. Now we'll see how evolution of life forms have occurred on Earth, as well as we will briefly understand evolution of man. Okay, so we can date when different type of life forms appeared. So accordingly, we can sequence the evolution of various kind of life forms that are categorized in different kingdoms. So first cellular life form, it appeared around 2000 million years ago. And some of these cellular life forms, they were obviously single celled, but some of these cellular life forms, they are single cells, they could perform process which is quite similar, photosynthesis. So because of which they could release oxygen. Okay. Then 500 million years ago, the invertebrates, they appeared. Okay. The invertebrates, they lived in water bodies only. Then around 350 million years ago, fishes, jawless fishes appeared, and then first amphibians, they appeared. The amphibians who could live in both land and water, they appeared. So a particular type of amphibian, which is called the ancestor of the current day amphibians like frogs, etc., is called lobe fins or coelacanth. Okay, you can Google this coelacanth, okay, and see how it looks, how the fossils of this first amphibians look like. Then seaweeds, okay, uh, they appeared in 50 million years ago. They all lived in water. Then it is said that it is the plants which invaded the land first. So when animals like amphibians, reptiles, etc., when they started to live on land, they already saw plants around them. So now plants invaded. After plants invaded land, reptiles started to evolve. That is around 200 million years ago, as well as various kind of ferns or pteridophytes. They were present and they were very huge. Then dinosaurs, they evolved, and first mammals also evolved around this time only. The first mammals, they were very small, they were not, um, they were, their survival was threatened by the presence of large and huge dinosaurs, correct? So they were very primitive in nature, the first mammals. Then around 65 million years ago, 65 million years ago, dinosaurs, they died. Okay. How did they die? Actually, it is not clearly mentioned in the book, but maybe you can Google it. It is a very famous topic, you know. Okay. So you can have a look yourself. Now let's understand the evolution of man. So who were our ancestors? So first, man-like or ape-like ancestors who were called Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus. They appeared around 15 million years ago. They were the first primates. Okay. Dryopithecus was more like apes, so they can be called as they can be called to be ancestors of the modern day apes like gorilla, orangutan, etc. Whereas Ramapithecus, he was more like man. Uh, the features were more like man. Then 3 to 4 million years ago, man-like primates, they walked on Eastern Africa. So they found fossils in Eastern Africa, and they saw that these fossils belong to primates who had more hominid features, okay? Man features is also called hominid features. Then 2 million years ago, Australopithecines, they appeared, and they were also, ancestor of humans only. So they lived in East African grassland, and they survived by eating mainly fruits. And as you will see that over the millions of years ago of evolution of man, man has started to walk more and more straight. The back got straight, and they started using their forelimbs for other than walking, etc. Then 1.65 million years ago, Homo habilis. Okay, and this particular species of human is actually possessing more and more human-like characteristics, which is very similar to current day humans. And they had a brain capacity of 650 to 800 centimeter cube. That is the volume of the brain. And their main food source was fruits only. They didn't eat meat yet. Then 1.5 million years ago, Homo erectus evolved. Now they had brain capacity of 900 cc, means larger brain than Homo habilis, and they ate mainly meat, means they hunted animals and ate meat. Then around 1 lakh to 40,000 years ago, Neanderthal man, okay, so they appeared, and their brain capacity was larger, significantly larger, that is around 1400 centimeter cube. So people from fossil evidence, they saw that they lived near East and Central Asia. Also, uh, people have found that from the fossil studies that they used to cover their bodies, like they used animal skins, etc., as clothes, and they used to bury their dead. So they were sentimental, they were emotional, they had emotional intelligence. And the modern day man, that is Homo sapiens, they and our ancestors, they actually arose around 75,000 to 10,000 years ago during the Ice Age period. Okay. So this is it about evolution of man, and this topic also concludes the chapter evolution. Thank you.